Today, we're going to debunk the popular evolutionary misconception that all traits are adaptive. Even if a trait serves a particular purpose, that does not necessarily mean that it is an adaptation for that purpose. It's tempting to look at feathers on a bird and say, those must be an adaptation to help them fly. However, when we actually look at the evolutionary origin of feathers, it seems that they initially arose through similar processes as mammalian hair, and are therefore not an adaptation for flight. So if not all traits are adaptations, then what actually constitutes an adaptation? Generally, an adaptation is the result of natural selection and is any variation in a trait that ends up making it easier for an organism with that trait to survive and reproduce in its environment. Finches in different environments have different diets, and they also tend to have different beak sizes and shapes. This is because their beak size is an adaptation that allows them to better access food in their given environment. But not all traits are adapted for the purposes they now serve. A bird's feathers, as previously mentioned, might be what's called an exaptation. An exaptation is a trait that performs a current function but was not produced by natural selection to perform that function. So, while feathers currently help birds fly, they did not arise to serve this purpose and are therefore not adaptations for flight. A trait that is not an adaptation might also be what's called a vestigial trait, or a feature of an organism that no longer serves a purpose. The relatively non-functional human appendix is an example of this, as well as the wings that still exist on flightless birds. Because they do not produce any reproductive benefit, and because they probably did not in the past, they are not adaptations. Additionally, certain traits may just be byproducts of other functions. The color of mammalian blood, for example, is not red because we get any benefit from having it be red. Instead, the structure of the hemoglobin that makes up red blood cells causes them to give off a reddish color. While hemoglobin serves an important role in mammals, blood being red does not, so it is not an adaptation for anything. These are just 3 alternative explanations for why certain traits might exist, but they help illustrate the important point that certainly not all traits are adaptations, regardless of whether or not they serve a purpose. Instead, some might be exaptations, or traits that have been repurposed to fit a particular function that they were not originally intended for. Some traits are vestigial, existing in a non-functional state and offering no reproductive benefits. Still, some are just byproducts of something else and have never, and probably will never, serve any particular function. Misconception debunked.